Own your car from the start. At B&S Credit Union, you can do just that with a flexible and affordable car loan. Our friendly and experienced team will make the loan process easy and will be delighted to help you. Visit bnscu.ie or free phone 1800 290 390. Loans are subject to approval, terms and conditions apply. B&S Credit Union Limited is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Newly engaged and planning your wedding? If so, the Villa Rose and Jackson's Dual Wedding Showcase takes place on Saturday, January 27th from 1 to 4 p.m. Come along and view both stunning wedding venues and meet the dedicated wedding teams at Villa Rose and Jackson's Ballybuffet.
The life of a Charlie's Chip is never dull. Once they're selected, they're off to Charlie's, where they lose the jacket, have a nice wash, and once they get into shape and get ready, out they go to meet the public, side by side with a nice burger, some fish or chicken. Enjoy Charlie's Chips to sit in or take away daily from 12 to 8 at Pierce Road, Letterkenny. When the hunger hits, pull into Charlie's.
Thank you for your company this morning. I'm going to hand you over to Greg. Greg, paint the picture. Paint the picture.
Well, we're sitting in absolute darkness here, Lee.
Yeah, there's Donna Marie beside us. She's using her phone.
I mean, it is pitch black in here at the moment.
It is.
Because the power's off across Letterkenny. It's across all over the place, isn't it? Like, it's off so in so many places it's hard to keep track of.
You did a good job last night. All the updates on the thing. Do you know, a lot of praise for you coming out?
Oh, no. Sure, look at.
Did you get any sleep?
Not much, no. I'm not going to lie to you. Didn't get much sleep. But anyway, we're here to keep the people company.
Yes.
That's what we're going to do over the next wee while. So literally, quite literally, folks, by Lee, thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure, Greg.
Have a lovely one.
You too.
Literally, by the power of a torch, we now have the news headlines, and it's over to Donna Marie Doherty.
Thanks, Greg. Good morning. Around 42,000 farms and businesses are without power this morning in Donegal after Storm Isha brought down trees and power lines overnight. The red and orange wind warnings are now over, but yellow alerts remain in place for counties Donegal, Clare, Leitrim, Galway, Mayo and Sligo. Brian Tapley from the ESB says hundreds of extra engineers have been contracted to help with restoration efforts. Donegal County Council is being urged to carry out urgent repairs on the Trenta Road, which has been beset by flooding, particularly in recent months. Councillors John O'Donnell and Michael McBride both had motions before Letterkenny Milford Municipal District to highlight the issue. Officials told the meeting some works have been carried out on the road already, with another application in place for climate adaptation funding in 2024. It's also proposed that a section of this road will be included in the 2024 Restoration Improvement Programme. It's been claimed there's a sharp decline in speeding enforcement, with figures showing a 33% drop in the number of fines issued on Donegal's roads over the past 10 years. That compares to a national drop of 27%. Into Representative Mary T. Sweeney says figures released to her party leader, Pater Tobin, in the Dáil show that in 2014, 4,744 fixed penalty notices were issued in Donegal. Last year, the figure was 3,170. Ms. Sweeney says this correlates with the drop in numbers of Gardaí assigned to roads policing teams across the country. And finally, the government intends to safeguard access to cash. Finance Minister Michael McGrath will bring proposals to Cabinet tomorrow to ensure there's reasonable access to cash at ATMs across the country. The National Payment Strategy will also be revised to provide a right to pay for certain goods and services with cash. The issue had headlines last year when the NCT operator announced it would no longer accept cash payments, a decision that was later reversed. That's all for now, until 10 o'clock.
Cuireann cervical check scag hostal Curvax fáil siarnáisce de bhná idir 25 agus 65 bliain d'aois. Tá scag hostal Curvax le high HPV cheann donna bailí is fearr leis an risca a laidú go dúchach an ailte Curvax tamachchanseo. Mátá an nám dat scag hostal Curvax a áil, déan cunne inniu. Le hólas a áil agus lena chinntu go bhfuil tú an glór, teigeigh hse.ie/cervical check. Ó aimimenacht na Seirbhíse Sláinte.
The county's #1 talk show, The 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio. And now, it's time for the talk of the Northwest, The 9 till Noon Show with Greg Hughes on Highland Radio.
And a very good morning to you. It is 3 minutes past 9 on this Monday, January the 22nd. January the 22nd. I can't believe it's January the 22nd. You're very welcome along to another week of the 9 till Noon Show. And what a weekend it was. Storm Isha. I've heard it pronounced in different ways in different places. It really gave us a battering across the northwest, didn't it? We're sitting up here in the mountain top, and quite literally, we are in darkness here. Our generator is about to kick in very shortly. We do have backup power, but for those of you watching our live stream, I'm not going to bore you by forcing you to watch me via candlelight. We will be back up and running as we always are very, very shortly. But just to give you an idea, and right across the region, power is out, trees are down, some roads are blocked, but amazing work already underway by ESB crews out there trying to get things up and running. People out and about clearing trees, but please still be very cautious of the fallen wires. If you want to keep us updated with what's happening on, I think a lot of us, and I was amongst them, woke up this morning and, didn't sleep fantastic, to be honest with you, but woke up this morning and you just don't know if your route to school or your route to work or your route to go and care for someone is open. So if there's any information out there that you want us to pass on to other people, please get in touch with us right now, 086 60 25,000, and we'll get that information across. Now, we are... our infrastructure here in terms of our aerials and what have you means that some of our signals aren't working over the air, but we are still available online. And of course, if you're listening to me now, you know that well. But if there's anyone close to you, they can still listen if they want to stay up to date through our website, through the likes of TuneIn, or indeed they can watch the show here on 086 on YouTube, Highland Radio Ireland, or on Facebook. And we should have lights back on here very shortly. So via Torchlight, let's have a look at what's making the front of the newspapers today, starting with the Derry People Donegal News. Clean-up operations are underway throughout Donegal today as a result of Storm Isha. A status yellow warning for wind remains in place until midday after extremely strong and destructive gusts tore through Donegal, leaving many households as a result. Gales force winds accompanied by heavy rain brought challenging conditions, especially to motorists. Very strong winds resulted in fallen trees and difficult travelling conditions, and it just became really clear early on yesterday. Some people had to try and get home, but unnecessary travel, really a no-go. The Derry News this morning, a protest highlighting the number of journalists killed by Israel in Gaza since October 7th was held on Saturday. The protest took place outside BBC Radio Foyle. According to Catherine Hutton, chair of the Derry branch of Ireland-Palestine Solidarity Campaign, the protest was also to challenge the BBC on its coverage of genocide in Gaza. On to the Irish Times now this morning, and a government-appointed expert group has said the state could and should do a lot more to allay fears about the arrival of asylum seekers, including avoiding last-minute engagement with communities where it's planned new accommodations. So it's hard to imagine, isn't it, that an expert group has been appointed by the government to tell them really what everyone should have known from the beginning and what we've been talking about and so on and so forth. Well, the report by the state's expert advisory group on ending direct provision also argues that all asylum seekers should receive a decision on their application within 3 to 6 months, with medium times for a first decision currently about 1 year. The report, which was submitted to Minister for Integration Roderick O'Gorman last week and is expected to be published this week, is understood to warn that local communities need to be engaged much earlier in the process. On to the Irish Daily Mail this morning. Excuse me. I thought you couldn't sneeze live on air. Excuse me, please. I was under the impression that there's this myth going around that you couldn't sneeze. I've never sneezed before on the radio. Well, there you go. On to the Irish Daily Mail, isn't it? Yes, the family of murdered French filmmaker Sophie Toscan de Plantier have admitted they may never know the truth about her brutal murder in the wake of suspect Ian Bailey's death yesterday. Her family made the comments after hearing the news of the sudden death of Bailey, the chief suspect in her murder 28 years ago outside her holiday home in West Cork. Bailey, who's 66, collapsed on the street in the market in Bantry yesterday afternoon, where he sold pizza, knickknacks and poetry that he wrote himself. Guardian Emergency Services rushed to the scene of where the Englishman fell to the ground, and paramedics worked for 20 minutes in a bid to revive him. It's understood that he suffered a heart attack, but no post-mortem examination is expected. Bailey had been renting a small flat in the town. There's much more on that story in the papers. Let's go to the Irish Star. Ian Bailey's notoriety grew later in his life after he became the subject of 2 documentaries investigating the death of Sophie Toscan de Plantier. 6-time Oscar-nominated director Jim Sheridan worked with Mr. Bailey on his smack hit Sky series Murder at the Cottage. Although I found both documentaries really didn't add an awful lot to the whole situation, and also, too, sometimes you feel that the actual victim of these crimes, Sophie Toscan de Plantier, is forgotten to some extent. Well, then Mr. Bailey was subject of a second Netflix documentary, Sophie, a Murder in West Cork, which Mr. Bailey did not take part in, but it was furious with their depiction of him after it was claimed he washed a black coat in a bucket at his home the day after the French filmmaker's murder. Speaking about the documentary, he told the Star at the time, "I haven't watched it. I don't intend to watch it." Okay, let's go on to the Irish Independent now. And a bit of an embarrassment here for Bus Éireann, perhaps. Bus Éireann has admitted deficiencies in its electric bus service in Athlone, with service curtailed because their batteries ebb in cold weather. Independent TD Michael Fitzmaurice, I beg your pardon, is using the new information to rail against Transport Minister Eamon Ryan and his green agenda. In response to queries from the Irish Independent, Bus Éireann said, "We are currently in a period of colder weather conditions, which will have an impact on electric vehicles, similar to passenger cars, particularly on batteries and range. Some of the curtailments were unavoidable. However, we're now assessing how the management and performance of the buses and schedules can be optimised to minimise these impacts." As I say, a little bit embarrassing, and pardon my stutterings at all if I happen to, because I'm quite literally reading the papers here down to torchlight, because the power's off here at Mountaintop and we're working to get it back on this premises in any case. A proposal for a charge of up to €15 a month on broadband bills to replace the €160 a year TV licence fee requires very serious consideration, the Tánaiste has said. Now, this is kite flying here, so now's your chance to have your say. What do you think about that? They want to get rid of the TV licence because very few people pay it. Much fewer people pay it than they did in the past, and there's quite a resistance to it and how it's spent and where it's going. So they're going to start lumping it on your broadband bills, £15 a month. So if your broadband's 35 now, that would be 50. If it's 60 now, that would be 75, and so on and so forth. The digital levy could replace the outdated licence fee, with households being charged directly for the use of services that allow people to access media online. But a government source told the Irish Sun the proposal, touted over the weekend, could throw up a number of problems, including how to exempt pensioners and low-income families, as well as there being no precedents to study. So it's the first time it's been done. Perhaps no coincidence it's the first time that it has been done. But you wonder too, and I say, for instance, Mr. Oliver Callan, I actually really quite like him. I like the work he does. I think his satire actually sometimes is quite more detailed than some of the news that you watch. He has now been appointed to take over from Ryan Tubridy on the 9 to 10 slot. And as I say, congratulations to him, and I wish him all the success in that. But €150,000 per year. How is that salary justified? Was he offered 60? Was he offered 70? Was he offered 80? Did he say, no, I need 150? Ryan Tubridy's doing 3 hours a week or 3 hours a day in England for £90,000, 3 hours a day. So you've got Oliver doing a third of the work in Ireland and getting paid an additional, €40,000 a year. So where is the change in RTE, or the change that RTE committed to? There's still, as I say, was he offered 90? Was he offered 100? Was he offered 50? You know what I mean? It's kind of a nothing's really changing situation. And then to ensure that those wages and other high earners are paid, you're going to be obliged to pay £15 a month on top of your broadband. That's what the proposal is. What do you think? 086 60 25,000 is the WhatsApp and text, or call 074 91 25,000. Learning to say no is one of the best bits of advice women could tell themselves if they could go back in time. If you, boys or girls, if you could give yourself one piece of advice, let's say if you were 15, what piece of advice would you give yourself? 086 60 25,000. What would you tell your teenaged self, having learned through life? Share with us. But anyway, being yourself, becoming more confident, and looking after your health are among the valuable life lessons too. They also include to stop caring what others think and to prioritise friends over romantic pictures. Good advice. But I think there's stages in life, isn't there, whereby you think that everyone, you know, really cares what you do, or what you think they really care what you're at or whatever. And then I think as you get older, you realise they don't. But that does take time. Those in the poll of 2,000 females said they would like their younger selves to have more fun and go to more holidays. They also gave a beauty tip: to leave their eyebrows alone. Okay. 086 60 25,000. What advice would you give yourself? Also, don't be afraid to, please. In fact, we encourage you to keep us updated with any road closures that's still happening, any trees that are down, any services that are off today, any electrical cables